A very good evening to all of you. And I'm very happy that, IPN has started with this um, top 10 priorities session. I think this is mind-boggling sessions where we all can think, talk, collaborate, and go late and discuss, deliberate, and come to some conclusion. What can we all do together to, set up our priorities after this pandemic, which has been hitting very hard on all of us. It's been almost 2 years that the children are out of the school, and we as educators have never seen this kind of a scenario earlier. So with this pandemic in and this all this which has happened during this time, or whatever we've learned, with all this in mind, what are going to be our top 10 priorities after this, from now onwards, after this pandemic is over? This is the discussion we are going to deliberate on. We know that, academic reforms or assessments of, for, and as, redefining them and talking about them in detail, and then trying and bringing the things in sync with the NEP is going to be the big challenge for all of us. So without taking much of the time of yours, I would just introduce you to the four panelists today. I think they will be introducing themselves one by one. We are going to take it forward from Mr. Sanjay Datta, who's the principal of Maharana Mewar Public School, Udaipur. And Mr. Sanjay is an eminent educationist, a very good friend. And I would want him to take over. And we would not want all 10 together. It's going to be a tough nut, because 10 things together is not going to be so easy. So we have decided the format is going to be two priorities at a time they are going to talk. And I'll come back to them after I complete the circle of four panelists. So over to you, Sanjay sir, with what are your top priorities, the top two priorities after this pandemic? Yeah, over to you, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you, Trilok sir. Always a pleasure to interact with you. And like a good teacher, you always set the classroom do's and don'ts very well. So you limited it to first two and then on and so forth. But I think the first challenge, because you said that we should be planning about what to do after the pandemic is over, but we into the third wave, and we are not very sure whether there would be another disruption or not. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it would not happen. But then I think you are truly thinking forward when you say as to what are the priorities that we would be having in mind once things become normal. But as of now, I think we are still in a phase where we are stabilizing. So I would say that our first challenge is to stabilize, because when the pandemic hit and everybody went into an action mode, it's like a submarine from periscope depth going in, dive. Everybody, is like everybody was running helter-skelter for whatever they were getting. And we were all in a self-congratulatory mood that, teachers have suddenly taken to whatever means that are available, and education has not stopped, and there are classrooms, and everywhere you saw, Zoom and whatnot, WhatsApp, everything was used at our disposal to fight this dive situation. But I guess after that, what's happened, if you look at most of the classes, most of the things that are available to us, that on the surface, we have used the means available, but not much has happened beyond that. So there has been a challenge as to how to refine and perfect this mode. And that is what I wish to say when I say that we need to stabilize. That let us say if you're using a Google Classroom, then we have to be careful that it does not stop only at using Google Meet. There are so many other platforms that are available. And this is just one example that I've taken because I think that is what we started with. And very soon the limitations of using the hybrid mode came to front. So my first challenge for everybody's attention would be, how do you stabilize your school on an even path when there is an off and an on mode? We had been preparing for the third wave somewhere around end of November. Thankfully, it didn't come then. Came December, we thought, well, we may not be able to get through even with our term one of boards. Mercifully, that came and went. Came New Year, and now we are into fully into the third wave. So the challenge is, how do you develop a system which is robust, which is responsive, and which goes on no matter what? So it's not that you are waiting for the next wave, so probably I will do this then. It is something that we need to now adapt, which is going to be a mean path, and where we are prepared for both the modes at all times. So that is what I mean when I said my first challenge for everybody's attention is, how do you stabilize? Because first knee-jerk reactions, yes, very well, we coped with it, we sailed through now, but we have had so much of time that we will have to evolve systems. So this emergency response system will have to be systemized. The second thing is quality of education, because UNESCO has also brought this out now after 2 years, that the quality of education in the next decade is going to be the challenge. Because we have perfected a certain way of teaching over the years. We had perfected a certain examination system, and now this disruption has thrown a challenge at us. So how do you assess children? How do you teach them? Or if you want to put it one after the other, how do you teach them and how do you assess them? And how do you measure the quality of your teaching learning? The assessments, I mean, everybody, people like me were very happy when the hybrid mode came, because we said that now you can have differentiated learning. So you see, that's a good thing to talk about. But the question is that how do you ensure that your last child is getting the quality of education which you were ensuring by a system which had been perfected by decades and decades of teaching by teachers? Typically, the PGTs in schools and the senior TGTs were accustomed to a certain examination pattern. Now that has been disrupted. Now you are teaching and you're using all the tools at your disposal. So the question is that, are we at the same time also measuring how the classes, how effective the classes are? Because it is still a struggle to get children's attention all the time. And then assessments have been greatly diluted. I say that without reservation, because you know how students are and what are the limitations of proctored examination. So I think the quality of education, maintenance of quality of education is the second challenge that I would like to draw your attention to this evening. Thank you.
Right, sir, right. Very well said, Sanjay sir. The quality of education is going to be a big challenge. That learning gap, which has happened over the last 2 years, which is going to be a biggest challenge for all of us, in fact. And the assessment, as you said, we are not very sure what kind of assessment is happening. Is it actually the assessment of the child or assessment of the teacher, or is it's just copy paste from one place to another? So there is a big challenge altogether. Both the pointers are very big challenge for all of us. And we'll come back to you again in the second round. And I will move on towards Kavita ma'am. Kavita, we would want you to tell us what are the other challenges beyond these two. I think when we talk about all 8 challenges will be taken care of, and it will be more or less the same. That's why I started with two challenges each, because otherwise it would have been a more or less a repetition of the same. So let us hear from Kavita as to what she feels is going to be the biggest challenge we are going to face after this pandemic, towards the last leg of the pandemic, you can say. Over to you.
So thank you so much, Trilok sir. And I think Sanjay Datta sir resonated my thoughts also. So basically what we've seen right now, that all the stakeholders there's some amount of a laxity which has come in, some amount of complacency which has come in. Now you find the student basically around in our families also, classes are going on and they're sleeping and watching the teachers taking classes. We see the teachers also, some amount, and we say that the teachers have done a fantastic job. I do stand by it. But somewhere we also notice that when we say work from home, not everybody has worked from home. Sometimes we have this case like we give leave to people who've got COVID affected, and we've had cases where not only they have shared if they are married, shared the COVID report of their father-in-law, mother-in-law, but they've also shared their fathers and sisters and everybody. So you suddenly don't know where they're actually living, So you have this kind of attitude which is developed in our students, that is developed in our parents also, because when the exams are happening, the parent is sitting by the side and actually dictating the answers to the students. So we have to actually, when they come back, talk about discipline, which is actually preventative, supportive, and corrective. So this is one thing that we all have to bring back when the school reopens physically full form. It's a discipline, internal and external, with respect to your academics, with respect to even your behavior. Because if I've noticed right now in our students coming back, many have forgotten to even wish the teachers. So this is something that we have to bring
Very
those
true, very
values
true.
back. Yeah. So I think somewhere over the period of time, we have lost this kind of commitment, and we've started taking every day one at a time. Okay, today today such a problem, that problem. It's okay. It's okay has to now change, and we have to start getting competitive a little once again and start working towards bringing in kind of a system where everybody knows that they are responsible and they're accountable. And the second thing, which sir has already spoken, was quality of education. And I feel very much so that assessment has become a huge joke for everybody. So when the students have come back, assessing learning gaps through concept evaluation. So every teacher this has to be the subject teacher who has to do a concept evaluation, assessing reports, that assessing the monitoring has to be very strong to find out across the school which concept needs to be reinforced, taken up, and what are the action plans to fill those gaps. And all obviously, when we look into all of this, these gaps, these expenses, if you need extra support in terms of resources, which is human or other resources, have to be accounted in a school budget also. So as a management also want us to look into the school budget for the next year. It cannot be what it was earlier. You have to invest more now because you have to fill in those gaps. So these are the two things which really stands out for me. One is discipline, and the thing is assessing learning gaps and looking into reviewing your school budget once again to ensuring that every need is taken care of.
Thank you, Kavita. You are so eloquent, you're so elaborate on what you had found that the challenge. And I really echo with what you are saying, that the children are sleeping inside the quills with the video and audio off and listening to the teacher, not even noting down what is being taught. So that is a big challenge that is really going to bring a lot of disciplinary challenges in the school. As you said, the children even have forgotten to wish the teachers. So that's very true. It's not of one school, it's for everywhere, it's happening. And secondly, the digital infrastructure will be a big challenge. We'll have to have a separate budget for that also. And both the challenges have been very well spoken by you. And I hope all of us who are sitting across the screen must be facing all these challenges together. So we'll come back to you again in the next round. And before that, we would like to move into the next one. Mr. Arjun, we would want to have you talking about the challenges which you feel are the priority at the moment. Yeah, over to you, Mr. Arjun.
Thank you so much, Trilok sir, and a pleasure to be here. Thanks to IPN for organizing this lovely panel, and welcome to all my fellow panelists. I'm going to approach this slightly differently. I'm going to think back to now nearly 2 years ago, and what life was like in January of 2020. Pandemics were unheard of. We found ourselves in a situation where we were still wondering. We had started hearing news of something that's coming out of China. Vaguely people starting to fall ill, and in almost to the day 2 months, our country locked down, and it's been nearly 2 years. There have been some children out of school, and I remember finding myself in March and April and May of 2020 completely stuck for answers. And after a point, I didn't even know what questions to ask anymore. I didn't know what we were going to do. People were looking to me for guidance, and honestly, I had no idea where to turn. And it was then that I learned the importance of a concept that's become so dear to me now, which was crowdsourcing. I realized that there is absolutely no way that my training, my experience has prepared me for this kind of a crisis. It's prepared me for lots of things, but it has not prepared me to deal with this. How do you deal with a circumstance where your school does not open, children cannot be seen, teachers cannot come to school, you cannot access anything that is considered normal in any of your experience? And so I did the only thing that I could at that point of time. I asked everybody. I reached out to all the teachers in my school. I said, look, this is the problem that we face. We need to collectively figure this one out. I don't know what to do. Do you? And it was amazing the kinds of responses that came out of the school system. I'm sure we've all got the same stories. Our teachers have come up with some extraordinary ways of being able to address the needs of their colleagues, but also as well as every single student's needs that's out there. They redefined what it meant to be in school during this pandemic. And by extension, we all shared ideas with each other. We're doing it right now, 2 years hence. We're all coming together to collectively perhaps come up with what might be priorities for the next many years. And I think for me, that was one very, very critical lesson: crowdsourcing. You don't have answers, you need to find them. People have that information, people have those answers all over the world. The second one that I realized was our ability to deal with change. I found that we had to change everything about ourselves. Our foundational values may remain, and the general aim with what we're approaching, learner education, learner advancement, holistic learning, all of those sorts of things remain constant, but everything else had to change about who we were. And I think this is going to be something that is going to define the future for all of us. How quickly and consistently are we going to be able to deal with the requirements that the world is going to throw at us? Are we going to be able to deal with that requirement of change? And it might require us. We've been out of school nearly 2 years. Some of us have not had access to our school buildings. We've not seen a single sports match on our playing fields. Our labs haven't been used in 2 years. Look at that. We've been fundamentally functioning in a completely different paradigm. So I think on some level, if we accept it, it can be quite liberating. You can find yourselves without a school building, but yet run a school. You can find yourselves forced to completely change everything about what you do and still survive as a school. Does that mean that going forward, we will be far more fluid when it comes to perhaps changing curriculums in our school, looking at different approaches completely, changing our perception of how we recruit teachers? I mean, the sky's the limit. You can do absolutely anything. And I think that freedom is something else that initially I was really constrained by. What will happen with this change? And then I found myself completely liberated over the last 2 years with the freedom to be able to make some extraordinary decisions. So the first, I believe, is reaching out to people, asking them for solutions, bringing them all together like we're doing right now. And the other is dealing with change. I think these are going to be two of the highest priorities as well as challenges for me.
That's so beautiful, so beautifully articulated, Arjun. I must say that you had made it a little different way, and it was really good that we were all, stuck in the middle of nowhere, because we were about to. We just started the sessions, Some of the schools started session for only 10th and 12th. For juniors, we couldn't even start the session. So we all got into a middle of nowhere, and then the necessity is the mother of all inventions, and we all found out ways and means how to go about it, how to deal with this pandemic. And I think we learned the change. That they say change is the only permanent thing in this world, which is the most permanent thing. If you learn to change according to the time, that really teaches you and makes you learn more. So I think we all worked on it, and we became very quick and consistent in the change also, accepting it the way it was coming. But yet it has posed a lot of threat on us, because that learning gap and that behavioral pattern of the children and the comfort zone of the parents. Parents also got into the comfort zone, when we opened for 2-3 months, they were not ready to send the children because they had to get up in the morning to prepare the lunch or breakfast for them and put the lunch in their tiffin boxes. So I think these are the challenges which we are going to face in the times to come. Now, without taking much ado, I would move on to Ms. Deepa Bhushan, ma'am, to give her topmost 2 priorities, and then we'll come in the second round for the next 2. Over to you, Deepa, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir, and good evening to everyone. Really nice to be here. I think what I'm going to do is actually end up encapsulating what my fellow panelists have said today. So when I'm looking at it, I'm actually looking at the priority being with us planning for the 4 C's. The implementation, of course, has to happen, but before that, it's the planning for the 4 C's, which is we're planning for continuity, we're planning for change, we're planning for collaboration, and we're planning for concerns. So when we look at these 4 C's, we're kind of able to understand that we need to put all these under these boxes and ensure that every one of them is ticked off, and we've kind of looked at it holistically. So when we're looking at planning for continuity going forward, the offline to online transition was not easy, but it did happen. Now, the same way, the online to offline transition, with all of you have been speaking of, Kavita spoke about the fact that children are also lying down on the bed. They don't want to, reaching school, there's no transport time. You don't need to get ready for school. You just wear your t-shirt and you're sitting out there, So many things happening. Assessments, that's not something any of the kids want to give in school. They're better off giving at home. So this online to offline continuity that needs to be there, this transition that needs to be there, has to be really smooth, and a lot of planning needs to be taken into account for that. Another thing is, of course, the learning gap that everybody is speaking about. We know when the kids come back, there are going to be learning gaps. So planning for learning gaps, ensuring there is continuity in learning, these gaps are plugged, and only then we move forward is so important. So I think the first thing that we're looking at is, checking previous knowledge needs to be an important aspect. So analysis of any assessments that the children have done need to be taken in the physical context also. And children need to be educated on why this is happening and how we can support the children. So that's another one. You had 2 years of children not coming back to school. So how do we bring in that continuity for them, that school is just not screen time, but is face-to-face time? So that continuity of 2 years that the children have missed and have to come back into this space has to also be thought of. What are the kind of activities that we need to do? What do counselors in school need to do? What do special educators need to do? We all know that attention spans have gone shorter. So that's another space that we need to work on. If I were to pick up planning for change, we plan today and tomorrow there's a new thing that comes across. And again, we never thought about Omicron. We never thought, by this time last year, we were supposed to be in schools, when the second wave happened. I remember with the IGCSE exams that needed to happen, we were like, okay, let's go, we are all planned. Now schools are going to start. And the second wave came and everything shut down again. We had planned everything. Then again, slowly things picked up. By November, we were again hopeful we would be back. And Jan, we were to reopen schools in Maharashtra. The Omicron happened and we were shut again. Now we've again got, okay, there is a reopening happen. So I think the first thing is for everyone to be ready. We've all gone through this kind of highs and lows is what I would call it. So planning for change, to be ready for it, because the teachers, I see the principals also a little fed up. We're not ready to plan again. We're not ready to do this because we don't know if we're going to reopen. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So how do we plan for it? But to keep that consistency, that change is going to be there, to accept it as a fact and say, okay, let's plan for change and let's be open to it. Leave those spaces in your planning. The third is planning for collaboration. Yeah, at this point of time, I think parents as our partners, they've been more so in the online space. I think parents really came on as partners, whether it was for the children, getting them to children also acclimatized to this space, logging on, coming into this space, assessments in every area. The same collaboration is now needed when the parents are to get their children back to school. So whether parents being happy about packing their lunch boxes, or parents ensuring that the children are disciplined enough to know that they have to wear their school dresses and come to school and not be sleepy. All those elements, parents need to work as partners with the school, collaborate with the school and come forward. Another thing is, of course, teachers, online to offline, coming back is not easy for them. So initially when we moved on to the online platform, we had to equip our teachers really fast. So we found that peer learning platforms were the fastest way to do it. So we actually got all the teachers to come together and get together and work in that space. The same aspect is something that we're working on for coming back now. So we're using peer learning platforms now for hybrid learning, because teachers need to learn how to do hybrid teaching. And so we're using collaboration in that space. So we're thinking in every domain, and of course, sharing of resources across schools. We did that a lot in the online space. Now everyone's going to move back into their own hubs. They should not forget some of the goods that they learned during this time. So collaboration needs to continue, and we must share best practices with each other. Another thing, and the last one, is planning for concerns. Every stakeholder has a concern about safety, about how will I go forward? Is this okay for me? And I think we as school heads need to focus on each and every concern and ensure responses are given to everybody. And also, we are plugging the gaps within the systems, because this is all new for us. Like Arjun earlier mentioned, it was new for us when the whole thing opened up. The same way this space is again new for us, the hybrid mode is new for us. And we need to ensure that, we're plugging each and every gap, and we must listen to each and every stakeholder, because these are the gaps really that come forward from that. We take that as feedback and say, okay, let's plug each gap and take forward. So I think planning for concerns is another important area. So I believe these are the 4 C's that we need to take forward. Thank you. Mr. Singh, I think, Mr. Trilok, I think you're on mute.
Yes. My servant was moving around, so I muted myself. So I must say that all the 4 C's were quite enlightening for all of us. And we all know that when we are going to reopen, the biggest problem will be, the mindset change. How to change the mindset of the people, whether parents, teachers, or students, or we as principals also. Even we need to learn how to move on from offline to online back to offline via hybrid. It has to be, we have to talk about the pedagogical changes, pedagogical reforms have to be looked into, and we'll have to find out the case specific. Every school cannot, you can't measure everyone with the same yardstick. Every school has a different challenge. So every school will have to look into it as to what suits my school, and how we can, what kind of pedagogical reform we can bring it, so that we bring all the stakeholders at the same page for the betterment and improvement of the system, and to reduce and minimize the learning gap and recover and come back to where we started from. Because as you said, the prior knowledge will have to be tested. What they've learned during this online, whether they learned or their percentage was very good, because they were copy pasting things. So this is going to be a big challenge altogether. Thank you so much for enlightening everyone with your views. Now for the second round, I will come back to Sanjay again. Sanjay, please talk about what other challenges comes to your mind when we talk about the 10 priorities for the principals after this pandemic. Over to you, Sanjay.
All right. So my next point, as I had jotted down, was the student connect. And I would like to draw upon what the 3 panelists have said, because Ma'am Deepa talked about the C's and collaboration, and Mr. Arjun Rao talked about crowdsourcing, and Ma'am Kavita had at the onset talked about discipline, where students had almost lost their ability to, come back into the system and say their good mornings. So I would like to bring all this together to my point, which is that we need to have a student connect, because every day seeing students face to face you had a lot of time and opportunity. And sometimes I used to call it as captive audience, that teachers, have a captive audience for 35 minutes, 40 minutes. But then that established a lot of connect, because kids were coming to you every day. You had opportunity to take corrective measures. You got an instant feedback of your teaching. You knew how each child was progressing. And if there was something that was not going right, you could carry out mid-flight repairs right then, right on the spot. I mean, a kid would be even held back and parents would be asked to report to school because you thought that something needed immediate intervention. From that level of intimacy, we got divided by the digital divide. The parents, yes, in some actually breathing over the shoulder of children and attending classes, which was another bane that happened, not something that was always positive. But you lost your connect with the students. As I was observing, Ma'am Kavita very clearly said that kids were sleeping, and Mr. Tilok further connected it to the winters and brought in the quilt. The fact of the matter is that you cannot control a child remotely. You can draw their attention. You can say that we have to make teaching interesting. You have to say that, our assessment has to be such that unless a kid passes a certain level, would not be allowed to go to the next one. Now that would be said because, you have a self-paced learning that is going on, and there are different pathways to learning and assessment where a kid would not go beyond a certain level. But then the fact of the matter is that there is no match for sitting face to face with a student and asking, did you get it? If you didn't get it, why didn't you get it? And then what is it that's needed to be done? What are the corrective measures to be done? So the student connect is something that we will not only just student connect, but the student engagement is my next concern. Because if you are not able to take it up to the level where you are used to having somebody face to face, there is a lot of communication. I mean, we all know communication is not just voice and face. I mean, there are so many things that you see in a body language, how a person reacts to what you have said, what happens after that. Sometimes you also get the monitor of the class and ask what happened after I left, because that gives you an idea of how the group is behaving. You had all those opportunities lost on you. So I think student connect is something that we will all have to look at. My fourth point today is the mental health issues, because pandemic has hit us not just physically constraining us into small areas, but mentally it has brought in a lot of challenges. The first is your attention span. We have all talked about it on numerous platforms that students' attention span is declining now. It has in the classes also. In the good old days, teachers would say physically present, mentally absent. Now they just have to switch off and they're physically also. So kids have faced a lot of challenges, and I have been giving credit to children as well, that they have gone through something that neither their parents had gone through, nor their probably one generation up had ever faced. We had only heard about pandemics from our great parents, which these children have lived through. And there is a lot of stress, loss of dear ones in the family, loss of sometimes peers. Let's not forget that it is a great impact on a kid to hear that they have lost somebody from their own age group. That is when they first feel the fear. And then there is the perpetual fear of getting infected. So students have been mentally, a challenge has been thrown at them, and they have been mentally tested a lot. So we will have to see that while we talk about loneliness, we talk about children's attention span, we use the D word, which I like to avoid, but I'd use it here, depression. I would still say that educators need to see how the mental growth of a child would happen. Because when you're talking about constrained spaces, you're talking about, not having enough physical activity. And that we have all talked about. But then mentally, if you look at them, the constraints they've had, the challenge of keep staring at a mobile, trying to learn, the students who were always worried about their grades, worried whether this amount of information that they're getting, is it good enough to sail through board exams? Now, we have to also look at those anxieties of children. So I would say that mental health issues are something that we will all have to address. We will have to take as many opportunities as we can to provide a normal learning. where students have lost opportunities of peer learning. We will have to become their peers as well, and we will have to involve the parents to ensure that children have what we typically call as a normal learning environment. So those would be my next 2 points. Vish sir, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay. You were very articulate when you talk about that, social, emotional, and interpersonal skills of the children have really gone for a toss during this online classes, because children are not able to meet. That connectivity which you talked about is very, very important. It's not the school. Coming to the school is not only for learning the academics. It's not only for academics. It's a socio-economic, socio-emotional, and ethical learning which takes place in the school is also very, very important. Second point, you talked about student connect and student engagement. I think student engagement is a bigger, concept which we have to talk about even in the online classes. How are we engaging our children? Are we able to create the breakup rooms where the children can go in groups, discuss, talk, and connect with their peer groups all together? Even in that also, we can create some space for the children so that, they don't have to just listen to us and then get a boring lecture from us. And after that, they always keep saying, sir, my laptop is not working, or there's a technical glitch. I can't switch on the audio. I can't put the video on. So these were the things which have been faced by you, me, and everybody else, because we, the teaching fraternity, has come to understand what are the glitches and how we are going to create that bridge up this learning gap altogether. Without saying much, I think now we come back to Kavita again. She's a wonderful orator as well, and she has been doing a lot of research work as well, which I've seen in the past during this pandemic. She did a lot of research work, which had come to us also as a questionnaire, in the questionnaire form. So I would want you, Kavita, to come up with what are the next challenges you feel that we all are going to face, and what are going to be your top priorities after this, say from April onwards. Yeah.
Thanks, Alok. And basically, my last year, my research was on the assessment that our students did. And I had interviewed more than 600 students. And obviously, the students themselves had said that we have indulged in malpractices and we have taken advantage of the situation. So now when you speak about assessment of learning, basically off-learning has been happening more often on online platform. Assessment for learning has been happening through projects and all, but again, we don't know who's doing the projects. So how do we create assessment tools which will cater to the effective psychomotor and cognitive development of our students? And hybrid teaching is here to stay. We don't know if a fourth wave comes in and we go back to online, then how do we create those assessment tools which would make learning assessment more, make sure that assessment is more objectively worked out on an online platform? How do we involve our teachers, our students, our parents? How do we create that ethos across for them to say, yes, all the three domains are important, and all these three domains will be given equal chance, not just academics. So basically, the other councils have definitely started thinking about it. That is why there was a change in the CBSE and the ICSE exam pattern. But still, much more work needs to be done on this. So I think this is one concern that has to happen. How do we assess our students an effective psychomotor in an online platform? And now that basically we're doing hybrid, we started offline for Mumbai. We have got more than 75% students coming in, but still 25% students are not willing to come in. In our higher classes, we have more than 50% not willing to come in because they wish to study at home. So this, because the board exam is coming up, they wish to study and not giving importance to other areas of their life. So how do we tilt this balance towards offline teaching learning processes? How do we find strategies to make a hybrid learning more meaningful? Because I'm seeing the challenge in the classroom. The teacher is sitting, she has 20 students in front of her. She's at the same time trying to address the students online. She's not able to cater to them. She's not able to do justice to them. Either she does justice to the students physically present in front of her, or to those who are online. So how could we support the teacher for better hybrid learning? what systems have worked maybe in other schools, which we could take from you all and understand it, because we have tried and experimented, and we still find the teachers are definitely very tired at the end of the day to cater both the sides. So how do we go about making hybrid learning much more meaningful in the future, in case where even 5 students of our class do not wish to come back physically, because we cannot force all of them. So what is the processes and patterns that can be incorporated? I think that is what I wish to ask everybody out here, if they could also share their valuable inputs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you so much for your insight on what you've already researched on. We had gone through what you did on the assessments last year, and you had given a video also on the LinkedIn, which I had gone through. And I think you, whatever you did, what I want to tell you is that now assessments, we need to revisit assessment, revisiting and changing our perspective towards looking at the assessment findings, whatever we found, how we're going to re-look into it and how to revisit and how to find out what has to be done. Because as you said, assessment for learning and assessment of learning, both are a little confusing altogether. If you really look at it, you don't know whether parents have done it or the children have done it. If you talk about the assessment for learning and assessment of learning is again, it's a dicey thing altogether. So I would definitely want all of us to ponder on it. And after the second round, we're going to open for the question answer round, where we would want everyone to, give their perspective and they can ask the questions to the different panelists as per whatever comes to their mind. So now I'll come back again to, I think the next is Arjun. Again, Arjun, it's your
Right.
turn to
Yes.
speak out.
Thank you. So I think one challenge that we've been noticing at school, especially as we start admissions for the new year and we see prospective learners come to the school, we're finding that almost 50% of them, if not more, have had, and especially the younger learners, I'm talking about early years, pre-primary, even lower primary, grade 1, grade 2, they come into the school system with a very diverse learning experience over the last 2 years. Some of them didn't go to school at all. They're, for whatever circumstance and reason, not pointing fingers at anybody, everyone was going through their own journey at that point of time. But some of these learners have been out of a formal learning environment for 1 year or 2 years. Some of them were homeschooled, which has had varying levels of success. Some of them had only online learning. That has its own limitations and its own advantages. In some places where schools were able to open for larger periods of time, they've been through that. So we've got a circumstance where we've got learners who have had such a divergent learning experience, all landing up in the same kind of classroom. So I think one of the most important things that we have to prepare ourselves for is the fact that learners are going to need our ability to create differentiated and divergent learning experiences for all of them. I think we're really going to have to focus on supporting our teachers, who will in turn support our learners, to be able to engage with them. First, understand what levels each of them is at, gauge that. And once they've assessed that, then create a system by which they're able to provide all the learners in the classroom the same kind of support. I think that is one very, very critical element that I believe will be a great challenge that we need to seek solutions for. The other is preparing our teachers to deal with an extraordinarily different school when they all come back. As Ms. Kavita just now said, they're going to have to deal with this hybrid school, possibly continuing for, I don't know how long. It could be 1 month, it could be 6 months, it could be the next 2 years. So we have to teach our teachers to be able to deal with that. We have to train them to be able to deal with learners of different levels. We have to prepare them to be able to continue to work with their ongoing professional development, while at the same time ensure that our teachers are not burning out. I'm sure we've all had adequate stories over the last 2 years of teachers in some extraordinary circumstances just trying to make it work. They had their own families at home. I mean, that those initial 6 months of the lockdown where nobody had help, you couldn't travel anywhere, nobody could come in and help you. You had a circumstance where teachers, spouses, children were all in the small square footage of their houses, just trying to figure it out. Everybody is attending class or work together. It was so challenging for them. How do we ensure that not only are we equipping them from it from a professional perspective, but also helping them find that balance? Because surely as leaders, that is also a critical responsibility that we all have. So I think that will be another, it'll be a great shame if we start seeing teachers burning out, wanting to leave the profession, which is something that I don't know if anybody else is seeing, but I'm already seeing younger teachers who are just saying, I don't know if I want to be able to do this. My classmates from college who are working in this industry or that, they've had a great time over the last 2 years. They've not left their homes. They've continued to travel. They were able to go and live in Goa and work from home over there. And naturally, young teachers or any teachers want to be able to do that kind of thing. I don't know if there's any head of school from Goa on this call, but you can realize how envious everyone is of you. But at the same time, I think these are very real things. And we have to help our teachers through this circumstance. For me, that is also going to be a really high priority. Over to you, sir.
Right, Arjun. You were very meticulous in telling us as to how and what we have faced and how we compare the teaching fraternity with the rest of the people who are working from home. We were actually 24/7 during this time. And I really feel that preparing our teachers to face the new normal is going to be a big tough nut to crack. It will be a big challenge because, as Kavita said, that hybrid mode and what extent the hybrid mode is being used and what and how we are going to use it. It's going to be a big problem because everybody has their challenges of their resources. Every school doesn't have the same resources. So that is going to be one challenge. And secondly, as you said, that empathy and equity is going to be a big challenge. That differentiated learning and differential learning. For that, the teachers have to have that empathy and equity in their mind. They have to be trained how to treat the children equally. Equally doesn't mean that everybody is treated equally. Everybody has to be treated according to the need. Need-based need-based help is needed for the children. I think you were quite meticulous. You explained it so beautifully. So I'll move on next to Deepa ma'am. Over to you. The next challenges and the priorities for you the minute we reopen into the offline mode. Yeah, over to you.
So I'm just going to take forward from what Arjun has mentioned about ensuring that the teaching staff is equipped. I'm going to now focus on the administrative staff. I think a lot of schools trimmed down on the administrative staff in the last 2 years. And now with schools reopening, actually, the numbers that we require are more. The kind of support that we require from the non-teaching staff is much more. And so bringing them all back, getting them to understand the priorities, because it starts at every moment of the administration. So when we're looking at safety processes in school, it's actually the administrative staff majorly who keeps that in place. So every moment from the time that every individual, every stakeholder, I'm saying whether it's the teacher, the leadership, the children who enter the school, we want to keep each and every stakeholder within our school safe. It starts from the security where the temperature check is done. Everyone has to be alert. Everyone has to ensure that all the SOPs are in place and everything is taken care of. So educating them, training them, bringing them back into our workforce, I think that's a very large priority for schools right now with the reopening that's currently happening. The second point that I'd like to mention is we can no longer replicate a physical school like it was 2 years back. I think we need to relook at the complete structure of a school. How do we want schooling to happen? Do we want to look at priorities? I think these 2 years have taught us that we can relook at schooling in a completely different manner. And I know that there are a lot of online schools now that are coming up. We know that learning completely changed its outlook. So I'm saying learning changed its outlook because the way we learn completely changed. And it's possible from, we were no longer limited by global boundaries, by physical spaces, by age, by anything. I think we have learned so much, about education at this time, when we thought we'd experienced it all. This was a completely new learning for us. So I think re-looking at how schooling needs to happen, what should the structure of schooling be? Should the hybrid model continue? Yeah. How do we still ensure the benefits of technology are still in place and we don't let go of them? How are we, I know that the government and everyone was trying to, bring in a lot of technology in learning for a very long time. But still, whenever you spoke to teachers and you asked them, are you using technology in learning? The thing that would come up, yes, yes, I show my students PPTs or I show them YouTube videos. That was what was technology in learning. I think these 2 years fast forwarded that space for us. So we must remember those benefits and take them back into physical school and not forget them and use. So, whether we want school to actually be an social emotional meeting space, where the development of social and emotional skills is our key focus, physical skills, where the children come to play, is that what we want in school? And we can still do the academics in the online space. So we have to completely relook at the structure of schooling and not limit schooling to the area that you're within. You can attend school from anywhere and everywhere. So of course, like we spoke about, Arjun spoke about Goa. I'm sure a lot of people would want to be in Goa and still learn from there. And we'd have access to the best of resources. I know the best of universities got their educators to teach our children. We were able to access that, which maybe never, it wouldn't have happened earlier. So I look forward to continuing that. But yes, relook at the structure of schooling is the second point that I'd like to say. Thank you.
Right. Deepa ma'am, it was so good to hear you that you talked about the administrative staff. Is going to be a big challenge for all the schools because, when we talk about the administrative staff, the safety and security of the children depends right from the maids to the peons to the sweepers, and everybody was cut down because nobody was there in the schools as such. So I think that is going to be challenge, how to train them once again, how to get them back to work with the same vigor that they were working earlier. And the ones who were already, they were not retrenched, they're still with us, they were also having no work as such. They're so used to sitting idle in the school, just doing a little bit of brooming and all, and then sitting and relaxing. So that is a big challenge, that how to get them to work is going to be a big challenge. And needing, as you talked about data, we need to relook at what is going to be a future of education system, how we are going to run the schools. If it is hybrid or if it is online, if it's a mix of hybrid or if it is offline, whatever we are doing, it has to be done in a very phased manner. Abruptly, if we come back to the offline completely, it will create a lot of than what it has already created into the student's mind. Because somehow there were certain benefits, there were certain advantages also of this online classes where we could create, I was talking about the O labs and all, where the children could see the experimentation in such a beautiful way with the 3D labs and all. So I think that was also an added advantage. So I believe if we create a PLP, personal learning paths for the children, where, in the class when the teacher is teaching, and children have not understood, some children do not understand, but we have a limited 40-50 minutes period. We cannot take the doubts of every child. If a child has a problem, then if the child can come back to the teacher, have 15 minutes time in the evening on the online class, virtual mode. So if we have a hybrid means, not only in the school, but even after the school hours, instead of making the child wait till Saturday when the teacher is free, I'll tell you on Saturday, I'm free, you can come. It's a non-instructional day. But instead of that, in the same day, the problem is sorted out in the evening in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the gap will not be there. Next day, the child will not accumulate. The accumulation of, I think, we really need to work on, we really need to relook on what pattern and how we are going to work on it. And there are certain pointers which I also had jotted down for all of you. Like I was thinking of, first thing was the pedagogical reforms, that is whether we go hybrid, online, offline, with a phased manner. Second, which I had in my list was assessments revisiting and changing our perspective towards locking, look about all this, but still, I think through this discussion. Then I also had physical health and sports to be made integral part of everyday routine in the school, because children have lost moving their hands and legs and all, the OBs, that is also gaining momentum. Children are becoming too difficult to be moving, and that's affecting their physical health, not only the mental and the emotional, but physically also they're becoming a little weakling in spite of putting in a lot of weight. Then we also had safety, security, and protection for every stakeholder will be another challenge which comes to my mind after the discussion which you have done. I've made the pointers from your discussions only, and I'm just repeating them in my own way. And I think this discussion was really very, very good. Now it's 6 o'clock, ma'am. Deepa.
So I just had one more point to add, and I think this is a forum of leadership of schools. I think one of the priorities is also to make parents understand that they must pay fees on time, as the school needs fees to run the show.
That's
I
a big challenge.
think
That's a topmost challenge, actually.
Yeah, so that's a huge challenge we faced, and I think
But
that's a
here
priority.
I would like to tell you, Ms. Deepa, here I would like to tell you that with the DPSG Vasundhara, where I'm heading, during the pandemic also, we didn't have a problem with the fees. We got 100% fees from the parents, because our teachers really traveled extra miles. I must tell you, they were at 12 o'clock night also, we were researching. We created a curriculum design 2020 of our own. And that was done by the teachers, of the teachers, for the teachers, so that it can be transacted properly, and we kept the parents on the same page. We gave the orientation to the parents, what extra we are doing. And when the parents are there with you on the same page, they don't mind paying, because they see that the value for money is there for them. This is one thing. And secondly, one more thing which was coming to my mind was the foundational domain is to be mapped with the scholastic area of the school. Even in the pandemic, during the pandemic, we created the foundational domain, whether it's dance, music, art, ICT, theater, everything was mapped up with the complete thing, so that there's 1 hour in the morning, children are doing only that as per their interest. And even in the virtual mode, teachers could do it because they were given the proper training and all. I think that also works, but the challenge will be how to map it in the regular school now, because children are out of all that. Whatever they're doing on the online is again the same thing. They may be doing it, but some of them are with the audio off, video off, and what they're doing, only God knows. None of us came to know what they're doing. So with these pointers, I open the house to all the attendees over here, all the audiences. Please, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. And Pooja, you'll have to look for whose hand is up. You can ask the people one by one.
Definitely.
They can ask the question in general, or to any of the panelists if they want to pinpoint a question. Please feel free to ask. Let's have a two-way interaction now. Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to ask anything?
Yes, if there's anyone who has any query, question, or wants to put any point, you can just virtually show raise of your hand, and I'll help you unmute the session. Any questions? Yes, Indrajit sir, please unmute yourself.
Any challenges which are coming to your mind and you want to give it to us? Indrajit Kumar.
जी सर,
You'll have to unmute Mr. Indrajit Kumar.
जी सर, मैं पटना से हूँ, और चूंकि मैं हिंदी शिक्षक हूँ और मैं इंग्लिश बोल नहीं पाऊंगा, ठीक है।
नहीं, आप हिंदी बोलिए, हिंदी तो हमारी मातृभाषा है, हिंदी बोलना तो बहुत गर्व की बात है, आप हिंदी में बोलिए प्लीज।
हाँ, तो मुझे थोड़ा सा ये है कि मैं सुन रहा था, लेकिन बहुत सारी चीजें मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रही थी, तो संक्षिप्त में अगर कुछ 5 मिनट में अगर आप थोड़ा हिंदी में समझा सके, जो अब हम लोग बातचीत अभी जो हुई,
मैं समझाता
मुझे
हूँ।
खुशी होगी थोड़ी सी।
एक्चुअली अभी जो चर्चा हुई है उसमें ये बात हुई है कि जो स्कूल खोलने के बाद हमें क्या क्या चैलेंजेस आ सकते हैं, क्या क्या चुनौतियां हमारे सामने आएंगी। तो आपने सुना होगा तो समझ आया होगा कि जब बच्चे स्कूल में वापस आएंगे तो उनका एक लर्निंग गैप हो गया है। वो लोग जो है ऑनलाइन में जब पढ़ रहे थे तो उतना अच्छी तरह से उनको समझ नहीं आया, या समझ आया भी तो उनके जो मार्क्स वगैरह होते हैं उसका पता नहीं बच्चे खुद कर रहे हैं या वो एक दूसरे से व्हाट्सएप में आंसर्स पूछ के कर रहे हैं। इन सब बातों के बारे में चर्चा हुई है। यही चुनौतियां होंगी जिसमें हमें देखना होगा कि हम अपने अपने उस विद्यालय में किस प्रकार से इन चुनौतियों को दूर करने के भरसक प्रयास कर सकते हैं। तो अगर आपके विद्यालय में अगर बच्चे जब वापस आएंगे तो आपको क्या लगता है कि आपके ऊपर क्या सबसे बड़ी चुनौती होगी? इंद्रजीत जी आप बताइए, आपको क्या लगता है कि सबसे बड़ी चुनौती क्या होगी? He's muted again.
हाँ, ओके। मुझे जो लगता है कि जैसे हम लोग अब चूंकि अभी ऑनलाइन हम लोग पढ़ा रहे हैं, लेकिन जैसे ही खुलेगी तो स्वाभाविक है कि जो हम लोग क्वेश्चन आंसर जो करवाते हैं, तो अभी तो हम लोग ऑब्जेक्टिव वगैरह भी जैसे हम लोग मिलवाए है ना बच्चों से, उसको पढ़ा रहे हैं। तो कुछ चीज जैसे मैंने संधि पढ़ाया, तो संधि में जैसे स्वर संधि पढ़ा रहे हैं तो उसमें स्वर संधि के भेद पढ़ा रहे हैं, तो वो कैसे यण संधि में क्या नियम है और उसका कैसे मेल होता है, यह बताने में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम भी हो रहा है। तो कुछ बच्चे ऐसे जो ब्रिलियंट बच्चे हैं जो तो समझ जा रहे हैं, लेकिन जो थोड़े से बिग स्टूडेंट हैं वो उनको थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम होता है समझने में। तो जैसे ये स्कूल खुलेगा तो स्वाभाविक है कि बच्चों से यह पूछा जाना चाहिए कि हाँ, कि चैप्टर वाइज मैं पूछूंगा कि अब भाई पहला चैप्टर हम लोग पढ़े थे, एक रिवीजन टाइप का 1-2 दिन का क्लास मुझे लगता है कि लेना पड़ेगा हम लोग को, कि इसमें चैप्टर में आपको बताइए कि कहाँ क्या प्रॉब्लम, और उसको देखना होगा। फिर जो क्वेश्चन कॉपी वगैरह जो
हम बात कर रहे थे इंद्रजीत जी हम यही बात कर रहे थे कि ब्रिज सेशन करना पड़ेगा, हमें बच्चों को ब्रिज सेशन देना पड़ेगा जिससे कि बच्चों को हम वापस ला सकें जहां से हमने शुरू करना है दोबारा। ठीक है, आप दूसरे 3 हाथ और ऊपर हुए हैं।
Yes, I will. Yeah. I'll request Aparna Ruth ma'am to please unmute herself.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to direct my question to ma'am Kavita. And she said that we need to assess the learning gaps and to identify and then do the monitoring of the teachers, whether they've taken those actions to correct those learning gaps. So the problem which I feel we would face is with the monitoring. Because when we have a huge staff and there are so many teachers, so for a principal or for the admin team to keep a track of monitoring is very difficult. Ma'am Kavita, would you have any practices which you would like to share which can help us monitor whether the right actions have been taken? Or so many times we see that circle incomplete, teachers do try to assess the learning gap, but very little mind is applied to think about the actions. So is there any practices or any ideas or we all could think about which can help us in monitoring that part?
Yeah, so this is what we have done right now. So every subject head in the primary section and in the secondary section, past 1 week I've been taking continuously meeting with them, and we've created a template as to how I want my assessment monitoring to be done, assess the action plan to be done. So everybody's going to create a test, a class test where only concept is going to be taken across. For example, algebra. Then in the algebra, what are you checking about? Addition, subtraction, 2 marks. Roll it out to the students. Tell me how many got right, how many got wrong. And then based on that performance of the students, I know if it's like 90% have got right and 10% have not got right, that means the concept is quite clear with the students. But if it is the other way around, then the point of action that a teacher wants to do, in that then later on, they will write out the action that they want to do. And overall, I'll be taking subject meetings with the teachers, with the subject head, and then working on the next year's plan to either reduce the curriculum or ensure that my Saturday classes, instead of regular timings, are going to be concept classes to address those learning gaps. So this is the kind of monitoring I've come across with my subject teachers in sync with me. So every subject I've empowered a teacher to monitor whatever class reports the teachers give, go through this and then come back to me. So this
one
is what
challenge which we have faced with something what we did is that when we take, say, an online quiz, which would be concept based, so many children don't want to do the quiz. And as you said, we're not sure whether they've got the help of someone or they've done it individually. And so many times what we have faced is when an extra class is kept for covering up the concept, the children don't attend. So these are the challenges.
So
and
this
I am
challenge,
sure so many people have a similar experience.
So ma'am, I'm not conducting it online at all. I have decided I will do the test only when they come back physically to school. So I've kept the test diagnostic tests ready that I'm working on, which are going to be checked by me for every single class at the end of it after the subject teacher's approval. And then afterwards, we're going to be addressing it to the students once they come back physically. That's our criteria.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think I would like to come here now. I would like to come here, Ms. Rudra. What I was saying, what Kavita ma'am is saying that, you have to have a little decentralization also in the system. You cannot have the principal monitoring everything. If the principal wants to do everything, then he is highly mistaken that he will be able to do it or she'll be able to do it. So we have to have, in our school also, we have a school academic council is there, where there are around 30-35 people are there in the academic council who are going to help in the monitoring. I think we have here Miss Manika. Are you here in the meeting? Manika and Al, can you put your hand up so that Pooja can unmute you for a minute? We have a foundational head, foundational domain head. We have a alumni head. We have subject HODs for the senior school, assistant HODs for the junior school. So they keep we call it a CRO system, class observation system. If it is a CROs are being done, then it is going to give us a little insight as to what is happening in the class. We don't have to judge the teachers, because at times what I'm doing, it's only there's certain parameters we have created. Those parameters they have to tick whether it was happening or not. If it is not happening, it may be a reason that was not planned for that particular session. So we don't judge the teachers by that, but at the same time, we can do some kind of monitoring, which Kavita ma'am is saying it through her research work. So I think I'm in sync with her 100%. Yes, ma'am. The next question.
Yes, we'll be taking the next question from Sharmila ma'am. Please unmute yourself, Sharmila ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. A very good evening to everybody, and it has been really a fantastic informative session. Now, when we were discussing about the hybrid mode of learning, and we were talking about focusing more on physical, emotional, and social skills of our students. I think last almost for 2 years, students have not been attending school. So we need to focus on these skills. And Kavita ma'am actually has taken she partly gave the answer to my question. So do you think that we need to revisit the syllabus, and the syllabus needs to be reduced to some extent so that proper justice can be given to developing these skills, because students really have not been in the mode wherein they could really focus on, socializing with others, or the emotional skills, emotional status has gone through a toss. So we probably will have to focus more on all those skills, and somewhere the academics probably will have to be, I won't say compromised, but to some extent, if there is any possibility that we should revisit and relook into these aspects as well. That's basically my question.
So we are definitely going to work on our curriculum. So based on our research and analysis, we will be reducing certain curriculum, which is we feel that can be covered later on also. Yes, we will be reducing. For example, literature, we wouldn't be doing that many chapters. We will reduce those and focus more on the skills of building language. So yes, curriculum will be revisited and will be reviewed and will be taken into consideration.
We have to definitely include the social, emotional, and ethical learning and the citizenship and character building as a part of our curriculum building now, because children have forgotten all the behavior. Like she said in the beginning, Kavita said that behavioral and discipline problems are going to be a big problem in the times to come. So I think the C learning classes and citizenship classes are going to be included and embedded into our curriculum altogether. Next question, Pooja.
Yes, the next question. Reena Sanghvi,
Yeah,
ma'am,
yeah.
please
Shut up.
unmute yourself.
Hi, my major concern was
Miss Leena.
yes, hello. My major concern was physical education, the physical fitness of kid. So once the school restarts, so this is going to be a major challenge for everyone. So how are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle the PE periods or the PE sessions? Like to get kids again on the ground, it's going to be tough for us. So, and even during this pandemic, this COVID situation, to get all the kids on ground, it's going to be difficult. So how should we handle this situation, or the school needs to put an extra effort?
Do you want to ask this question specifically to some speaker, analyst?
As Trilok sir said, like physical health and best of kids, this is going to be a challenge. So it's actually going to be a challenge. So how we handle this?
See, the physical education and sports to be made integral part of the everyday's routine in the school. And if we make, like in the morning when the children come, if we have a zero period kind of a thing, or we can start with, we have to start with the baby steps. All of a sudden, we cannot jump into something, when we start, because this is going to be revisiting the schools again after 2 years. So we cannot expect the children to become the champions all over again. So we can give them a little space. We can make sports and health and physical exercises as an integral part of our curriculum. Like in the morning during the assembly, our sports teacher can get some PT exercises, something slowly and gradually. I think it will not be a tough nut to crack, because children love, that is a human instinct to play and enjoy. More than studies, the children come to the school to interact with their friends and play with their friends. And I think if we make it an integral part of our curriculum, our school system, everyday's routine, it will be taken care of. It might take a little time, but yes, it is doable and it will happen for sure. Arjun wants to say something. I can read his face. Yes, Arjun.
Well, I mean, the only thing I want to say here is, I think initially, and so since we've been fortunate enough in Mumbai to be able to open schools, one of the most important regulations that has come to us has been, please do not have learners gathering, which fundamentally targets this one element, which is around sports and PE. Plus, medical advice has been that because learners need to continue wear masks while, at least for the foreseeable future, whenever they're in close contact with each other, this may be another great challenge that they might face. And I mean, with due respect to all authorities who have designed these regulations, I invite them to walk around the streets of Mumbai, walk past every public park or any apartment complex. I see children on bicycles. I see children playing basketball. I see children playing humongous cricket matches. And in Maidans, there is all kinds of kabaddi going on. But it is only in the schools where there must not be PE, there must not be gathering.
Already, yeah.
And I find it completely extraordinary that this is at the heart of when Omicron was all over the place. I would look outside the door, children all running around the street, which is fine. It's fine. And children will. I mean, after a point, their parents must have said, please go. I cannot hold you indoors any longer. And I think, at some level, I find it very important for all of us as school heads to be able to communicate the fact, that we are in a space where we can genuinely create safe spaces in which everything can happen, from a chemistry lab to a cricket field to I don't know, whatever else you want to have, a music recital. We are great champions at creating SOPs as school heads, and we've all done them all. And I invite all of us to continue to share the way we are, and I think put it out there. Let us influence policy, and be able to, in our own ways, in our own localities, get it out there that this is what we are doing. This is what we are planning on doing. And I believe if that message goes out, that there is no safer place. I mean, I find it extraordinary that schools have opened, at least in Mumbai, for every single child this Monday, yesterday. But the same child could go to a mall, watch a film, eat in a restaurant, play in a playpen inside that mall. I mean, I wouldn't want a child to play in it without a pandemic. So I don't know what example they're setting, and what this means, that schools have to be able to put that message out there. Sorry, I get very carried away when I talk about this particular theme. So, but I'm sure all heads know where I'm
Mr.
I
Arjun.
I think I'll just butt in there. I mean, you can have the IPN.
Yes, Arjun, we all
have the
what you're saying.
Australian Open, and you can have all that. So I guess the challenge is, when we are talking of challenges, I think we have to have that positive aggression where we go ahead and tackle this rather than become regressive and try and kick up the paranoia further. So I think schools, as Arjun said, are the best controlled environments that you have. And he said we are great ones at making SOPs. So I'm sure that there would be, for all times to come, at least in our lifetime, there would be one contingency plan saying that, when Corona or its variants kick in, kindly do this. Thank you.
Even the schools have started. But again, it's like they are not taking the P lecture. P sessions have not been taken. Schools have started for academic, but just as academic is important, similar way, even sports, physical education, fitness is very important for kids.
I agree with you 100%.
I'll come here for a minute. Arjun, what you said was perfectly all right. The children were seen all over the places, but for the school. As if the Corona was sitting outside the school gates to greet everyone, say, I'm here. So parents were also not saying, they were taking the children to malls, they were taking them to the parks to play. So children have been playing all over. And in our school, last month in December, we had the chairman's championship for 6 different games, and 450 children participated, and they were all full of enthusiasm. I couldn't feel that they were scared of Omicron or COVID or anything. Children are perfectly all right that way. Only thing is that when it comes to academics, they become a little in the comfort zone, sitting in their houses and then studying, not getting ready in the morning to come to the school. But I think this will be the biggest challenge we will be facing from April onwards, how to get the full strength. Even if you start, you'll find in April, if government order also comes to open, you'll find only 25-30% will start coming. And it will go on in a phased manner. They will look at others and then they will come. This is what happened in October. On 28th October, we reopened. We could not get more than 500 students till December out of 2,000 students. So you can think of, it's going to be a tough nut to crack. Challenges are ample, but how to handle? That's why these sessions by IPN are being organized, so that we can start thinking of what is going to be there, so that we are prepared for all those challenges and start working on it. And I saw that Dr. Manoj Singhal sir has put his hand up for a long time. Can you come up,
Yes.
Dr. Manoj?
Please unmute yourself, Dr. Manoj.
Good evening and thank you. And it's lovely listening to all of the stalwarts. And already a big fan of Kavita ma'am and Deepa ma'am. We also all reside in Mumbai. My question is, I'm a mentor to a couple of schools in Mumbai and I teach the higher grades. I think the biggest challenge we will have is with the reduction of syllabus in CBSE and ICSE. Uh, and when these kids will go for entrances, there's a big lull is what has been taught right now and what conceptual questions they will see when they appear for JEE and NET. I can already see a huge gap coming in being a faculty for NET as well as IIT JEE. So with the reduction of syllabus, there has to be some proportionate part coming in the entrance, which is not happening. So I think kids will suffer when they go for entrances with huge reduction. And I do not know how schools can cope up with it. I've been trying my best to take extra classes and everything. But the biggest challenge coming to me as a mentor, as a faculty is, sir, these topics are not there right now. So why should our kids get more pressurized learning from them? I want any of the persons can, tell us what exactly can do. Arjun, sir, if you can also say it would be great, sir.
Dr. Sehgal, I
Right.
personally feel that the best way to get around that would be to go for concepts and leave the practice part more on their own, put that onus on the parents that they have to ensure that this practicing is done by kids, while the building blocks of learning, just the concepts, are given in the school or during live sessions. Because I don't see any other way to encompass 1 year's learning into a couple of months. So that would be, I think, the only way around.
So the
That
challenge is in 35 minutes, you're struggling to anyway complete the portion. And with
Exactly.
another extra hours, the students will not be sitting. Parents are already pressurizing us. There's too much on an on-screen time. I do not know. I feel this bridge is very, very difficult. I don't know. This is maybe my concern because I'm teaching for the entrances. Maybe Kavita ma'am or Deepa ma'am or Arjun sir can tell us something from their perspective. How are they handling this part? I'm sure they will also getting some queries like this.
Yeah, so Manoj, we are coming up with a bridge course for our own SVKM is coming up to make sure that they're ready for all the competitive exams. So we're doing it be after school hours.
Perfect.
Again, the same time constraint would kick in, because as Mr. Sehgal said that, parents are already saying that, how much screen time do you want my kid to have? But as I said, so you'll have to give it as something of a self-study and, do it yourself. Those DIY kits would have to be given out. And the practices will have to be done, proctored by the parents.
His phone is with me, right? I missed that.
So we'll be taking the next question from
Phone is with me.
Seema Gupta. Ma'am, if you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, all the panelists.
Good
Good evening, Trilok sir. It was great listening to everybody and finally have to get connected with you online. I am going to derail the all the discussion that has been going on, and it was literally this is the fact that we are facing the crunches on time, syllabus management, everything is there. But my biggest challenge is fee collection. And like I was blessed on the numbers, like when the schools reopened in UP, and the strength actually came in like a very good number. But the parents are not ready to pay for the online sessions, or they are asking for N type of discounts. So this is my question to all the panelists, like how actually to counsel, because when we ask them to come to the school for the counseling session, they are reluctant. They're quite reluctant on that because they know that once we go to the school, they are going to somehow extract the fee. So my question is to all the panelists, all are really very senior. Maybe I get some respite on this.
Well, I guess it's not so much question of extraction as getting the due. And
it has become extraction.
And I think this whole fuss has been kicked up by some statements in the press by people with vested interests who, gave false hope and then tried to rationalize that online is not equal to, face-to-face. But I guess you'll have to impress upon the parents the fact that your child can't remain uneducated.
Actually,
The best that schools can do, I mean, teachers are a very selfless lot. I have seen them throw in their best at the expense of their personal time into educating children who were half reluctant. So we'll have to impress upon them that it's not a question of, how much or how many hours or, they're trying to assess whether it is worth their money or not. The question is whether the kid has to be educated or not. And if the answer is in a yes, that there is a need for education, I think everything else then has to go along with it, because you cannot leave a child, because there are already reports. I mean, there have been highest of places from which there is authentic reports that have come in. The International Journal of Current Research has pointed out that there were 32 crores of learners whose movement was stopped during the pandemic. And now when you see, they say that a year and a half lost at this age is equivalent to, let's say, 5 years of learning at a later stage. So you will have to impress upon the parents that, yes, there has been chipping and chopping that has been necessitated by the way schools have adopted, but then they've done their best, they have given the education. And as I said, the fundamental question is, do you believe that your child deserves an education? And if you think that is the case, I think teachers deserve.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
We'll be taking the next question.
I would like to come in here,
Yes,
Sanjay
yes.
sir. What you said is perfectly all right. When you talk about the fee collection should not be it should not be a challenge if you take the parents into confidence that yes, their children are getting value for money. And that can only happen when you keep to the best of your ability. You have to train your teachers, you have to make it in such a way that the parents can see, because they were able to see your transactions in their classes. Earlier, they never had the, they were never able to enter your classes. Now they're watching you. If you're really doing wonderful work, that can be seen by the parents. They appreciate and they pay willingly, because they see that the teachers traveling extra miles rather than 6 hours a day, teachers working almost 24/7. So I think that kind of a message has to go to the parents, and that can go only when the teachers, not the principal. I'm telling you, principal may be one important person, but more important than the principals are the teachers in the school system, how they're connecting to the parents. The teacher-parent connect has to be very, very strong for any school to be in the same page with everyone. I think this is what is my take on it. And we collected, I'm saying openly, we collected 100% fees up till now, and parents have been more than happy. If you see the kind of feedback which they give to us, it's really heartening for us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Next question, 2 more are there. Pooja? We are heading.
MPS, could you please unmute yourself?
Mr.
Yes, very good evening to all of you, and it's lovely to hear to all of you. And I would like to share that since I have joined, I'm in 1920, and as an opening batsman, I'm facing all the challenges. Regarding the principalship, what I'm telling you all are my seniors. So my question is, I have already got answer of one question from Dr. Manoj regarding the syllabus, because I'm also taking chemistry in 11th and 12th. So reducing syllabus is not the solution, because ultimately child has to face the entrance exam. And my second question is, how can I increase strength in my classes? My means, I'm talking about all the subjects, because there's hardly 50% of strength is there. Even after I have taken orientation, then PTMs, in which even 50% parents are there. First, we have to awaken them. And among the 50% students, only 50% students, I mean half strength, will switch on their video or listen attentively. As ma'am has just said, some of the students are sleeping, some of them are not paying attention. So my concern is about the result of the students. How can I improve that?
Ma'am, I think you will have to ensure that the assessments which should go hand in hand with your teaching are more frequent, because sometimes we leave the assessments till far late into the session, and curriculum has been disturbed and our timing has also gone off. But you will have to make sure that as each unit gets over, there is an assessment to go with it, and there is a time limit. And coming back to what I was talking when I said that, we have to use the digital learning platforms judiciously. There are features that there is put a timestamp on everything that a child is doing. So it is time for you to leverage that technology to ensure that there is an auto movement and assessment going on along with your teaching in classes, which will ensure that the children are attentive, they're regular, they're coming because they know that they are being marked, they've been washed, and if they leave, there is no way to get in easily back into the system. So I think those are the things. The timestamps are very important, leveraging technology is important, and assessing them as you teach, go along.
Sir, no, I agree to you, right? But my worry is how to increase the strength of the students in the senior classes. And it is my experience, I think all of you will agree, कि nursery KG till class 8, students are very active. But 9 to 12th, what I have observed, because students are so technological alert or smart, they can easily say, ma'am, internet ke problem hai, video nahi on ho raha hai. So my point is how to increase the strength in the class, and jo bacche aaye hain, how to improve their attention.
Ma'am, what we have done is after every class, we take a Viva, and that Viva is counted as part of internal assessment. So you can have this kind of thing, a Viva is taken across.
Okay, thank you.
I think I also go by this. We are having a mid UI assessment also. While you're teaching, like I'm also teaching science to class 8 these days, because one of my teachers unwell. She's not there for 1 full month. So for last 1 month, I'm taking the classes and I'm preparing my lesson plans and everything. What I see is if I'm teaching sound, after doing sound, I can have a mid UI assessment for the children, unit of inquiry assessment, and then I can complete the light. And after that, after completing this, I can have a end UI assessment. So assessments really big, and it has to be not a boring assessment. It has to be some kind of assessment, and it's mandatory for the children. It's added on. It's added on to their a term 1 or term 2, so that the children get serious and they start attending their classes. I know that 100% will not be there, but to a you can increase the strength in the class by making your lessons very interesting and then having mid UI assessments in between. So the children know, like Kavita ma'am said, you can have the Vivas, oral test or something like that, But I think the challenge is faced by everyone at the moment. Thank you. Next question, the last question now. We already overshot the time by 5 minutes. Pooja, this will be the last question we'll take.
Yes, we'll be taking this last question. Mr. Kishore Kulkarni, please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you, IPN, for such a wonderful discussion. Sir, before asking a question, let me add something that nowadays, no doubt, school is in online mode, but a couple of days back, when school was in offline mode, then I designed my timetable in such a way that there was at least one period per day for each class, sports period was there. They used to play on the playground. And one day, this thing happened that our sport teacher was on leave, and I heard the conversation of 2 students of class 7th. आज तो स्कूल में फालतू आ गए, वो sport teacher है ही नहीं आज. So that means that much passion they have for playing. Okay. Anyway, no doubt this digital technology has a very great impact on this education. This is very good. We should use this technology. Coming time will be of this hybrid education. But my question is that, see, because of this technology, evaluation pattern has changed. Last time in term 1 class 10, it was the MCQ type examination. And And that's why same pattern was followed in all the classes. And now thing is that what is missing is that because of this multiple choice questions, the writing skill of student is missing. And notebooks are still incomplete. Students are not writing in their notebooks. And this is a frequent complaint from parents that please give them some homework so that my child can write something. And that means from handwriting point of view, something is missing. So how to cope up with that?
I think these are the challenges which are faced by almost everyone. We'll have to start from a scratch once we reopen. And I think we have to ensure that we are leading the classes in such a way that it gets in sync with the NEP also, which we almost forgot during this discussion. NEP is another challenge which has come only during the pandemic. So I think we have to make our classes in such a way that it gets in sync with the NEP, focus on the vocational skills development, and with regular transactions, social and mental health, and everything has to be taken into account. What I believe is today's discussion has brought on for all the pointers which we individually may not be able to think of, but all the four panelists have given a lot of insight to all of us as educationists, as a stakeholders who have to ensure that the future generation is given their due. The minute the schools reopen, we are prepared mentally. When we say the SOPs are being prepared, this is also an SOP. This was a kind of SOPs have to be prepared how to face which challenge. If you're talking about the mental health of the children, what are we doing and what are we putting at place? We are talking about the administrative staff getting back and making them get into the normal course of working. That is another challenge. We have to create some SOPs for that. We have to be mentally prepared for all these things. I think today's discussion on the as a whole was a wholesome discussion, whether it was Mr. Sanjay, Datta, Ms. Sanghvi, Mr. Arjun, or Mrs. Deepa. All four of them had given a lot of food for thought for all of us. I think on behalf of IPN, I thank all the four panelists today for being here and sharing their views with all of us. We really enjoyed. Thank you so much. And in the absentia of, I must thank Mr. Gaurav Yadav in absentia today, because it is his brainchild, which is bringing all the educationers all over the country and abroad together to sit together, boggle up our minds, come up to some conclusions, take some takeaways from here, and work individually in your schools as well. With these words, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kavita, Arjun, Deepa, and what was the fourth one? And Sanjay, my dear friend. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you all. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful session.
Thank you, everybody.
I have Dr. Deep Khare, sir. He would, I mean, there's a question that I think he's raised his hand. If we can take that also, and then.
Oh, Deep Khare, sir is there?
Yes.
Yes,
Please,
Deep Khare, sir. Yes,
Good
Mr.
evening, everyone.
Dr. Deep Khare.
I just wanted to listen yes or no from all the panelists and the moderator, sir, that how happy were you before pandemic with the Indian education? I only want yes and no, that's all. Because how happy were we with our education imparted in the school before pandemic? I can see we all are worried about this pandemic. For me, the pandemic is going on for last 30 years. The day I became a teacher, basically. And so I was just looking at that. We sitting here and really telling parents that, yes, of course, we have not done a good job. We ourselves have not realized that it is a new normal. And we have to accept what it is right now. We are expecting normal life in abnormal times. Naturally, we will have difficult time in getting fees. Anyway, I just wanted to know.
I think Dr. Deep, what your question is, how happy were we before the pandemic? We were more than happy. And we were happy during the pandemic also. It is the state of mind, how you're going to deliver and what is your practical oriented approach towards education. And I think it's a state of mind. What kind of a approach you are following and how you're going to make it happen and how it is going to be practical oriented. As I always say, it has to be student-led education. It doesn't have to be a teacher going to the class, writing on the board, asking the children to copy down, mug it up and vomit in the examination. It has to be the other way around.
Mr. Arjun, if you can,
Let the children ask more questions. The more the questions they ask, the more the brain development takes place. And we were following it before also, during also, and even after this, we are going to follow it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Anybody else amongst the panelists would like to answer these questions? Yes, Deepa ma'am, you want to say something? Deepa Shukla. You can unmute Deepa Shukla. She is the ride in charge at DPSGV. She is looking after the research, development, innovations, and empowerment. We call it a ride in charge. Deepa ma'am, can you come up? You have raised your hand. What
Yes.
does she want to say?
Yes, sir. Hope am I audible? Am I audible
Yeah.
to everybody? All right, sir. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak my heart, because I was actually forced to speak here. I was wanting to speak, but then since the session came on closure, so I didn't want to. But Deep sir's question really compelled me to come in here. I completely agree with you, sir, when you said that when you put up that question first, and then you said that there was a pandemic going on. So 1986 was the latest policy, and we all were cribbing that, we really need to remodel our education system before pandemic. And this was actually the opportunity. This served as an opportunity for all of us to think, to exploit all our resources to actually reform this system. And this was the time when NEP came in also. So all of these inputs, all of these insights that we have been hearing since the beginning of this session, all of them, this was the opportunity to put all of them together. So how are we going to put them together? Thankfully, I belong to an organization wherein we worked upon this, and then we made a model which is so successful. I'll just give you an example from my own class, from the very recent example which I experienced today itself. And I'll take you back to 2005 when NCF came out. 2005 NCF's recommendation was that our learners are to be autonomous. We never realized, we never read, we never paid so much heed to this sentence, this statement that was made in NCF 2005, that are learners to be autonomous. After undergoing this pandemic, after redesigning all our pedagogy, all our classroom transactions, all sorts of assessment and everything, after bringing in these reforms, today, when I had to attend one function and I could not take my class, so I just wrote this small statement to my children. It has been 1 year that we are following this new curriculum design, which we have framed based on the inputs that we were hearing right from the beginning. So I just wrote this small statement to my learners that, "Ab tumhare hawale batan sathiyo." And when I came back, I received a message from my learners from the class that attendance was taken by this person. We have discussed this. Notes are uploaded here. You can watch the recording. And there were a few more inputs given too. And when I watched the recording, it was a complete session. There was no teacher in the class, but there was a complete session, and it was not revisiting of the concepts, but it was what I was to teach them today. So this is the kind of autonomy that we are looking for in our learners. So if anybody wishes to come back to us for knowing that how all of these inputs that we discussed today, and there were really many insights and research-based studies and sharings that you all shared. So if you wish to really know that how to integrate it, you are most welcome to come back to Delhi Public School, Ghaziabad, Vasundhara to get to know how to integrate it into our system and how to make our learners autonomous.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you so much. I'll request everyone, we are running out of time. So I'll request everyone to please come again for the next session. I would like to thank Arjun Rao sir, Sanjay Datta sir, and especially Kavita Sanghvi ma'am and Deepa ma'am for being a panelist for today. And many thanks to Trilok sir for being a beautiful moderator as always. With that, with your permission, we come to the end of the session for today. Thank you all. Thanks to everyone for sparing our time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Have a nice evening.
Namaste. Bye-bye.